Yes, sir.
All right. Larry Scott, Chair, Vice President of Student Achievement, and we are kicking off a long evening of committee work sessions tonight from 5 until 9 o'clock. Maybe we'll finish early like we have been in the past lately. Let's hope for that. But I'm really excited to kick things off with a presentation from Research Lab High School. Just want to say a few words. Just before the pandemic hit, I visited high schools at the time were new innovative high schools, and Research Lab was one of them, and I was incredibly impressed with the programming, the real life practical experiences that students were getting. Principal Cullen seemed very responsive, kept at that time very good real-time data on graduation, potential graduates for those students that were going to graduate with a Regents diploma. At that time, it was going to be their first graduating class when I had visited just before that pandemic hit. And the other thing I was really impressed with was the attention and the level of social emotional support, restorative practices, health and wellness. There was certainly a dedication to the whole child, and that stuck out as a priority. So with that said, I will turn it over to Superintendent Williams-Knight to introduce our staff and the presentation.
All righty, thank you first, Vice President Scott. We certainly do have a gem in our research laboratory high school. They are doing some very exciting and meaningful work. And we have another gem in our city, and that is the University at Buffalo. And so tonight we're going to hear from our Associate Superintendent, Karen Murray, who will be introducing some of our guests. They get really excited when we get our principals who come because, you know, they really are on the front line. And so I'm excited that we do have our principal who will be here, and we have some partners that are here also. So I won't belabor things. It's going to be a long night. I will turn things over to our Associate Superintendent in the Office of School Leadership, Karen Murray.
Thank you. Good evening, Dr. Williams-Knight, honorary board members, and colleagues. I would like to start by introducing two pivotal team members who have been involved in the planning stages for the University Assisted Community School. Here with me tonight are Angela Cullen, the principal of Research Lab High School, and Dr. Christopher Proctor, an assistant professor from UB's Graduate School of Education. I would also like to acknowledge Dean Rosenblith, who is attending virtually tonight. Next slide, please. Perfect. Thank you. Our work around creating a university-assisted community school takes the community school model to another level, enhancing academics by connecting the university and school curricula through a focus on solving community-identified problems. As a result, tonight's presentation will focus on 2 of the 8 tenets: innovative high schools and fortified connection with our community partners. Next slide, please. The goal that our presentation addresses is number 5. Admir, if you can, thank you. Activate partnerships which will expand the learning beyond the classroom and which will connect the community to the classroom. Next slide, please. The launch. We are standing here tonight very excited. The work we have begun is the result of a conversation that occurred between Dr. Williams-Knight, Dr. Caresses, and Dean Rosenblith. Dean Rosenblith had a vision of cultivating a university-assisted community school after visiting the Netter Center, and she approached Buffalo Public Schools with the idea of a university-assisted community school. Due to the existing partnership between Research Lab and UB, it was a natural next step. Next slide, please. Our design team first met in the spring to hear the vision. In July, the team started to meet 1 time per week. The representatives from BPS include myself, Principal Cullen, their guidance counselor at the time, Aaron Belisle, and their program coordinator, Kira Miradecki. UB originally had 4 team representatives, Dr. Proctor, Kristen Cipollone, Tim Monreal, and Alexa Schindel. And ironically, both Tim and Kristen are here tonight for moral support. What a team. Thank you. However, recently, Sandra Small and Kate Stellan have also joined our team. Next slide, please. The team visited the Netter Center in Philadelphia and was able to explore current models and operational systems that support the university-assisted community schools. The development of a university-assisted community school in Buffalo will potentially create a model centered in equity that serves our schools within the district and also nationally.
Next slide, please. So for those of you who I have not met, I'm Angela Cullen, Principal at Research Laboratory High School. So thank you for having us here this evening. When we began the whole process, the context and purpose was that Research Laboratory High School has currently developed a rich partnership with the University of Buffalo since we began in 2016. And due to a shared interest in community engaged work and education, Research Lab and UB have created an opportunity to build upon the existing community partnership, the existing model, and enhance that partnership between UB and Buffalo Public Schools.
So next slide, please. UB BPS School will emerge from a transformation and extension of the existing school structures, practices, and community. The evolution will include the following: emergent structures making use of available resources and meeting existing needs. Existing focus on the development of the whole child and social emotional well-being. Existing K-12 university partnerships and existing research-oriented curriculum.
Next slide, please. So when we talk about amplifying the community school model, we're moving from a community school to a university-assisted community school. This means that the school becomes the access point for infusion of university resources and potentially developing a model of national interest that would be right here in Buffalo. Some of these strategies that we'd be looking at would include professional development partnerships, research to practice, where we'd have turnkey best practices, access to expertise across university departments, dual enrollment, and conditional university admission. Next slide, please. So we ask you to imagine, next slide, please, a focus on relationships. So Research Lab is a school that prioritizes school and student relationships, student well-being, a place where community voice and knowledge is valued. Imagine a school community where students mature from lived experiences, employ cultural knowledge to address contemporary challenges in meaningful and authentic ways. Imagine a school where students have choice and voice in their learning, where they can pursue their interests and explore local issues from multiple perspectives. Next slide. Next slide, please. Thank you. Okay. Imagine a school with authentic inquiry and democratic decision-making. Research Lab is a place where students and staff are encouraged to explore areas of interest and curiosity. Imagine a school where students and staff are supported in their development as proactive and creative problem solvers, capable of effective communication and social change through project-based learning. Imagine a school where partnerships with UB provide staff with expertise in content along with support, resources, and flexibility to support students to their fullest capacity.
So speaking for the UB faculty who've been on the committee, we've been so excited to get a chance to meet Research Lab and see the things that are happening there. Research Lab is clearly already a place where some students have the opportunity to self-select topics of interest and engage in authentic learning, under the guidance of trained and experienced staff. But imagine a school where curriculum and students' learning is unified across disciplines by a common theme, with opportunities for authentic local application and also connection to UB, a world-class research university, supported by planning time and ongoing collaboration with faculty in UB's Graduate School of Education. Next slide, please. Research Lab already recognizes the value of STEAM in learning and professions and acknowledges the importance of digital literacy. But imagine a school where computer science and computing more broadly is an interdisciplinary nexus, and computing is woven into all of the different academic subjects. It's a subject that's studied independently, and also it's a connection between high school and later university study. Next slide, please.
So our current partnership has been evolving since 2016, but it's currently limited to the relationships that we have developed between University of Buffalo and Research Lab staff. So currently UB serves as our after-school partner and our community school partner. And through the years, other opportunities have been very topic specific. So certain folks have reached out to us where they know that we have an interest that lies in our current coursework, but again, very specific to topics, projects, or specific departments. So we ask you to imagine a relationship that is more comprehensive, transparent, proactive, and accessible to all stakeholders. This would be a partnership where both parties are equal collaborators and providers of opportunity. Imagine where we could integrate and co-locate, where staff have all the resources and opportunities to support students to their fullest capacity through the partnership that UB could bring forward.
Next slide, please. One more, please. We are very proud of our vision. It took us several weeks to nail it down, so I would like to take the time to actually read the vision aloud. Research Laboratory High School is a joyful and collaborative community where students engage in democratic decision-making with community and university partners. At Research Lab High School, we will build on the strengths of our communities, their lived experiences and cultural knowledge, to address contemporary challenges in meaningful and authentic ways. Students are supported in their development as proactive and creative problem solvers, capable of effective communication and social change. Through project-based learning and an interdisciplinary emphasis on computing, Research Laboratory High School supports the development of the whole child by valuing their curiosity, academic growth, and social emotional well-being. Next slide, please. One more, please. The key strategies include personal growth and relationships, authentic inquiry, and democratic decision-making, which will foster community-based problem-solving, computer science as an interdisciplinary nexus, and school-university partnerships.
Thank you. So in regards to personal growth and relationships, growth and expansion of relationships through intentional planning to allow Research Lab High School to support the development of the whole child, build on the strengths of our communities through the use of resources from both BPS and UB communities to provide support to specific needs of the students and communities through which they engage. Next slide, please.
Second key strategy is authentic inquiry and democratic decision-making. So we are imagining extending the work that's already happening at Research Lab such that students and families have a meaningful role in the structure of the school, as they already do, but even more so, and in the curriculum, which is partly shaped through conversation with students, what's going on in communities, and it's responsive to those needs and interests and identities. The curriculum is organized, and authentic inquiry is rooted in the lives of students and communities. And the curriculum is flexible in ways that can bring in resources, teaching and learning materials, expertise from UB, and also can bring students from the high school onto those resources at UB's campus. Next slide, please. With respect to computer science as an interdisciplinary nexus, all students at Research Lab High School will study computer science as a standalone subject That's one. And secondly, integrated into their other courses so that computing is already familiar. It becomes the medium of sort of the way that we think about, the way that we do and work with our learning in the other subjects, and also as a skill set which catalyzes university-school relationships. We're imagining, for example, that students in grades 11 and 12 will be in internships on UB's campus. Their prior study of computer science will make them really valued colleagues in the research laboratories that are happening on UB's campus. Then through framing such as digital civics, digital humanities, and data science and modeling, computer science and computing more broadly will transform and will unite existing disciplines rather than becoming the center of attention. Next slide, please.
So there's the three parts to the school-university partnership. The university-assisted community school model will expand our current community school program rooted in partnership with all that UB has to offer. An academically based community service would allow students to make positive impacts in their community, strengthen their knowledge base, and develop relationships.
And the third really key tenet that we're learning from the Netter Center, who've been doing this work for 40 years, and who have a network all around the country that we've had a chance to learn from, imagines that the university-assisted community schools and the academic-based community service, these connections between school and university going in two different directions, unite to create a democratic anchor institution. And really at the heart of it is a vision that has been shared by John Dewey and many other inspiring leaders in education before us, that this democratic anchor institution becomes a place and a structure by which we can strengthen our civic lives together.
Next slide, please. So we listened and we evolved. Enhancing the current partnership between Research Lab and University of Buffalo will enable us to offer cutting-edge curricular experience and construct a collaborative community and structures to co-create learning experiences that are relevant and responsive to our students and the families here in Buffalo. Next slide, please. We want to thank you for the opportunity to present our work as we imagine enhancing the current program at Research Laboratory High School, and ask if you have any questions.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for the great presentation. I will turn to my board colleagues for questions, and we'll go in alphabetical order, starting with President Evans Brown. Any questions?
So in the future, you can put me last. I am now the president. No, just kidding. Hello, everyone. The presentation was wonderful. I'm familiar with the University at Buffalo. I worked there for about 12 years in the Office of University Preparatory Programs. So I'm glad to see that UB is evolving, particularly with the Buffalo Public Schools. I'm excited to hear, I would like to hear some of the outcomes, you know, some of the civic responsibilities and projects that the kids will be involved in. I'm really excited about the whole framework that you just presented today. Thank you.
Thank you, President Evans Brown. You're first in my book, so that's why I picked you first. Board Member Everhart, welcome to your first work session. Any questions?
Hi, Larry. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Research Lab High School. I think it's very exciting. This is the dream school, it sounds like. I've always wanted to be able to pick my curriculum in high school. I actually studied computer science in high school. Back then we were doing binary code though, so it was ones and O's, and it wasn't as exciting as I'm sure it is now. As far as the curriculum, you said all students study computer science. Is there other subjects for them to study or other concentrations?
Sure. So Research Lab is a comprehensive high school, so we would obviously be still having to offer all of the coursework that they would need for graduation. We have traditionally had a science-based focus in the medical sciences, and I say that we evolved because we were fitting a need at the time. In 2016, when the school was originally opened, there was this need on the Buffalo Niagara Medical campus to funnel students through UB that would go into the medical sciences.
Right.
And so now we're looking at how are we evolving to now meet the current needs. So when UB came forward with this idea around this computer science coursework, this is what we need now. And what we started to think about was this idea that what if we were able to give every kid what they need? And maybe it's not the medical sciences for every student. Maybe it's not computer science for every student per se, but if we give them the opportunity to be able to figure out what it is exactly that they're passionate about,
Right.
that's really the goal of what we want to do. We want to be able to give them the opportunity to pick, and it would be more in the elective realm. So pick those electives that are going to really kind of light their fire and get them excited and hopefully get them, you know, interested to move on. But the computer science aspect is one course that all the students would take in addition to what we call Research 1 and Research 2. So within those courses, they would be able to pick their passion and focus on that.
That's amazing. And then you fuse the computer science throughout the entire program, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And as far as allowing the community, the parents and the students to kind of like shape the curriculum, how does that work? Is that a meeting or is it just kind of like as the kid shows interest?
That's a great question. We actually have that in the works. So we are in the initial planning stages for curriculum, and the next step is to now bring in students and families.
Love
And
it.
as a way to make sure that the grade 9 cohort that is going to start in the fall of 2025, we're also going to be scheduling family orientation meetings just to make sure that they're hearing this firsthand too and they understand what's to come.
That's amazing. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Board Member Everhart. Board Member Mercosi, any questions?
I don't believe I have many questions. I would agree with Board Member Everhart around, you know, what would that community engagement look like? I see the orientation part of it all as when students are coming in. It doesn't have to be now, but I would be really curious with this fantastic sounding program, you know, what recruitment would look like to bring students into the fold. Is it similar to, I guess I do have a question. Is it similar to kind of Da Vinci or Middle College where there's a certain cap amount of students? Obviously, it's a smaller school. You know, these questions that come into play for parents, because I feel like what you've brought forth today is definitely very eye-opening, and I don't think it's out there like that. Just what the school does, not just this, you know, partnership, but just what Research Lab is when folks are choosing schools. So I'm just hoping that this is, you know, you see all the other schools and how they're recruiting, right? And I would love to see like this fantastic program be more of a common conversation when it comes to recruitment. So that's, like I said, it doesn't have to be answered now, but I would just like to see, you know, you all really get out there with this message. Because as a board member, yes, I knew that, you know, Research Lab exists, and yes, I knew what you did, but you articulated it to a point that I was like, oh, wow, you know. Without it being in my district, I'm a parent kind of looking at it, and yeah, this is an exciting place to be, and I'd love for other people to know that. So, kudos.
One thing we
to
are
you.
doing to try to get the word out there sooner than later is Angela and I are going to be doing the radio show on this Saturday on January 11th on Power 96.5 from 11:30 to 12. So we're going to further explain the great work that we have going on at Research Lab.
That is great.
That speaks exactly to what I'm talking about. That and all the other avenues that are out there, but it's a great program, and I'm excited to see what you're going to do in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Mercosi. Board Member Shuda, any questions?
I have a couple. As we talk about this community school connection with UB, is there going to be any of the community school funding tied to it, or is there a funding aspect between UB and the BPS, or is how is that working?
Yeah, I mean, we currently are a partnership school, so we get funds from our partnership program. And in regards to the expansion of the partnership, we're in the process of discussing MOUs in regards to what would need to happen. And that's conversations that are happening a little bit above me. But yeah, so there has been discussion about funding, but I don't think anything is specifically in place at this point other than our current partnership funds.
Okay. Great, thank you, great information.
Just for clarification, using the term community school here is not the same as what we apply to our strong community schools, such as Bennett. Am I correct?
Yeah, it's a little bit different. I mean, the community school model that we currently have in the district, which includes supporting schools to build culture and climate, providing social emotional supports, having opportunities for parents to access legal aid and students and parents to access healthcare. All of those things are part of our current community school program, and that's not going to change. We'll still have those opportunities. But by going to the university assisted community school, we're looking at identifying community problems and providing a opportunity access point for students to be part of problem solving. And that would be done through opportunities like co-taught classes where we might have, imagine a class that's taught at the high school level where a college professor and maybe 15 college students come in once a week and they co-teach the class along with the Buffalo teacher, which then provides the opportunity for that expertise from the college level, but also those near peer relationships to develop amongst the college students with the high school students. So I think for me, it's like an enhancement, and I would say like an academic enhancement.
And my question, I guess, would be then, so the university is in the position to have the resources to provide that to us. That's what I guess I'm wondering, like, where's the cost, and is the cost going to be something that we're able to work on? I just want to make sure, like, because it sounds like such a great initiative, and we just want to make sure that there's an avenue for us to make sure that parties are supported where they need to be supported.
So in July, we were tasked with creating a very explicit timeline. So we have had talks about budgetary needs and about resources and things like that, but it's all in the developmental stages. So we're taking it like one step at a time. So right now we're here, we're excited to announce it, and then from there we will continue to go on to progress as planned out.
Okay, thank you very much. Great.
If I could speak quickly to the UB side, our dean is extremely strongly championing this project, and she's had all the other deans at UB together talking about that, which doesn't happen all that much. And the precedents that we've been looking at in Pennsylvania, in Los Angeles, all involve significant resources, support coming from universities to support schools. So I think, as you're saying, like, there's a lot of details to work out, but that's been part of what we've been imagining.
Perfect, thank you.
Very good. Board Member Woods, any questions?
Just a couple comments. I strongly support community partnerships. That's one of the fifth initiative is extremely important. I believe strongly that this approach will have the children become very interested because they're researching things that can make a difference in their community, in their parents' lives. And also by partnership, being a partner with UB, we get the benefit of getting some of those college students to be teachers for us. And also with community partnerships, I assume that we get interaction with more diverse staffing because that's a failure we have in our current staffing. We need more African-American men and women so that the children can see role models, the students can see role models. So I applaud your program, and I'm hoping that when you say you're teaching them about democratic solutions, democracy is under siege. So that's another thing that I strongly support, because the country is not strong unless it has an educated citizenry who knows what democracy is about and what they're fighting for. So I applaud all of your concepts, and I will be monitoring their effectiveness and maybe even suggesting some community partners.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Woods. Welcome, Board Member Zulich. I think you're in City Hall. Any questions, Board Member Zulich?
I have a comment. I'm also excited in this partnership with UB. RLHS is not on a lot of families' radars, so we would like to get the word out. I like joyful and collaborative community. I guess a question would be, could you maybe get into some details? Will potentially create a model centered in equity. What does that mean? How would that look?
It was a part of the vision. Yeah. Oh, okay, part of our vision statement. Maybe we shouldn't have the word potentially in there. Right. And our goal is to provide a model school that is centered in equity. So I think maybe the word potentially needs to come out.
Let's just give it a
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all.
All right. I just had kind of a two-part question, not to put you on the spot, but from what I remember, the graduation rate has been outstanding. I'm just wondering if you have latest data on graduation rates for Research Lab, and then just any sense of what's happening post-graduation with your students as far as college, career. You know, do you have a sense of where they're ending up after they leave Research Lab?
We definitely do, and thank you for your comments earlier. I remember our conversation very clearly several years ago, and it was really great to see you at our school. I appreciate the nice comments. In regards to our graduation rate, yes, we have had a very good graduation rate, but the reality is that a lot of that has been affected by a lot of the appeals that were in place because of COVID. So it's been something that we're always talking about, always looking at, and it is our goal certainly to continue to have a high graduation rate. We are expecting, a similar graduation rate this year to what we had last year. I think we were after summer school, I think we were at 89% last year. So we're hoping to be in that same area, and based on what we've been looking at with our students, we should be in a very similar place. In regards to keeping, tabs on our kids, we have several students that have actually gone on to UB. We have, one of the things that has been really great is that our partnership that started with Dr. Sandra Small, which she's been with us since the beginning, we have always made sure that our students knew who she was when they went to UB, and she's created an environment for them where they feel very comfortable that they know they have someone that they can go to if they ever have a question. So she has like a little place where they can hang out, and that's something that we've talked about, is having like a welcoming space on campus where our students know that they can go, that they see a welcoming face, because it is really intimidating to be on a big campus like University of Buffalo. So actually, one of our students who graduated 3 years ago is currently the president of student affairs and clubs at University of Buffalo. So he's been keeping us abreast of everything that he's been doing. So we do have several students that have gone on to UB. We have several students that have done internships, and they're working in labs at UB, but we have other students that have gone on to programs at Northland that are doing really well.
No, I signed out of Life Size, and then I pressed.
Oh, and then we have several students who also have ended up at Buffalo State. So it is really important to us to keep tabs on our students, but the beautiful thing is they like to come back and see us as well. So we don't sometimes have to search them out. They come back and give us updates on what's going on. Usually around Thanksgiving and Christmas, we get lots of visitors.
Very good. Well, thank you for your wonderful presentation and all of your hard work. I need to visit the school again. You're in a new location since I visited, so that is definitely on my list to do in the future. Board Member Belton Cotman, you just joined us. I don't know if you were listening in on the presentation. Is there anything you wanted to add before we transition to the next work session? Oh, we lost her. Superintendent Williams-Knight, I'll turn it over to you for closing thoughts.
All righty. I'm pleased to hear the excitement from all of the board members regarding this initiative. I think for too long, there have been silos between universities and K-12 institutions. And you can, live or go to school a stone's throw away and never engage with a college. And so many of our children will be first generation college students, and it's just really important as early as possible to begin exposing them to the opportunities at post-secondary institutions. And when you toss in the community partnerships piece, I think it's just going to be a win-win. So this is really exciting. We've got these goals set for where we want to see our students going, and how we expect them to present outcomes at the end of their high school careers, and this just aligns to all of that. So kudos to Research Lab, kudos to the team. Thank you to the University at Buffalo for stepping up, and I'm really excited to see where this will go.
Thank you.
All right, our next committee work session was Executive Affairs, and I know Board Member McEachen was joining us late.
Mr. Scott, it's actually going to be education support with Chairperson Shuda. If that's okay, Chairperson Shuda, I see that the district staff for your committee is on the call. When I see that the co-presenter from the Leadership Network is on, we'll go ahead and get started. So we may have just a brief pause right now.
Sounds great, whenever we're ready.
Yeah, that was my mix-up, sorry.
No problem.
And Mary Ann, if I see you on, thank you. If maybe you can give a call to our colleagues from Leadership Network and they can log on.
Will do, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Brent.
Marianne or Charlene, just let me know when I see Principal Johnson, when the Leadership Network staff is on, let me know in case I can't see it on my screen. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, good evening, everyone. I see Principal Johnson. Good to see you, sir. I see Omar Morris. So I'll invite, and I see Chairperson Shuda. And I will just check the superintendent's availability, and then we'll get started. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Morris, Principal Morris is trying to get in.
Dr. Carestas, I am here and ready.
All right, we are going to get started. So Madam Chair, I'll turn it over to you.
I'm very excited tonight to have Student Leadership Network present. As a former principal, today I took a visit to South Park High School, and in the auditorium there was an alumni college forum, and there were 7 of our students that were on vacation from college that were meeting with the seniors and answering questions. And this was all due to the coordination of Student Leadership Network, their full-time person, Kayla. All I hear has just been such wonderful feedback from principals and students. And I thought it was time for us to learn more about it so we can celebrate the good work that is happening. So I will turn this now over to the superintendent.
All right, thank you, board member and chairwoman Shuda. This is exciting. It's very, very exciting. It just continues kind of the presentation that we just saw. And, you know, college access is complex. It is not easy getting to college and you know, being successful there. You know, my dissertation really focused on that. And what I found in my research is that no matter where children socioeconomically come from, they and their parents often have hopes and dreams of their children attending college and being successful in college. So I'm really excited about what I hear happening with this program that continues to expand each year. And as I said earlier, I'm always excited when we have our principals who are here and are also able to contribute what they see on a day-to-day basis. It does take a village, but what they see on a day-to-day basis. So I will turn things over to our Associate Superintendent in the School Leadership Program, Charlene Watson, to key it up.
Good evening, Superintendent Williams-Knight, board members, cabinet. My name is Charlene Watson. I'm Associate Superintendent for Buffalo Public Schools. I have the pleasure of working with Student Leadership Network. And this organization supports our young people that are growing up in diverse, underserved communities to help them gain access to higher education. This is a supportive organization for our high schools and in no way does not replace the work of a school counselor. The school counselor's job is multifaceted, and Student Leadership Network provides services to students in addition to the support they receive from the school counselors. There are 11 Buffalo-based employees working in East Community High School, Riverside High School, McKinley High School, South Park High School, iPrep High School, Burgard High School. And Mary Ann Dixon is our liaison to help support this work as well. I will now turn the presentation over to Omar Morris. And after Omar Morris, we will hear from Principal Eric Johnson from Burgard High School, and then Principal Mike Morris from South Park High School. Thank you.
Watson?
Yes.
All of Student Leadership Network is not on the call yet. They're still trying to get in, and Principal Morris is still trying to get in.
Okay, I see Omar.
I have problems getting in.
Okay, all right. So, Mr. Morris, are you able to start the presentation?
It would probably be better for the entire team because I know our ED, our executive director, really wanted to support. So if we could start with the principals, because I think that also would allow us to kind of ground the work, and then it makes a little more sense as to what we're sharing, if that is possible.
Okay, Principal Johnson.
Okay. Good evening. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. It's a pleasure to be on the board meeting on tonight. Student Leadership Network has been at Burgard for 2 years now, and I wanted to find some adjectives to describe them before I give you some of the data that I'm sure they will repeat as well. But they have high student engagement. They're dependable, flexible, responsible, they're self-starters, goal-oriented. They're a great complement to the guidance team here at Burgard High School. They're very visible throughout the building. They're team players and they're data-driven. So some of the data, I'll just go over some brief numbers here. So of my 120 seniors, 60 of my students have already completed the FAFSA. 50 of those 120 students have applied and got accepted into ECC. All of my seniors have been exposed to college and career workshops throughout the year. College trips have taken place already in the first 4 months of high school. They've worked with my students on goal setting skills, provided social and emotional support for my students as well. We know most of the focus is on colleges, but they've also engaged them in registering for training programs, so Northland Workforce Development and also in employment. The events that they've already scheduled this year, Senior Parent Night, and on that night, we had over 50 parents here with the Student Leadership Network staff working with the parents to complete the financial aid form. We've already had a college and career night, FAFSA push-ins, and scholarship night. And the future events that are scheduled here at Burgard High School, alumni event, junior parent night, a career night, and senior celebration decision day. So they have a decision day here in May where they celebrate all the students that got accepted into colleges and into training programs, sort of like what they do with the football when they do their trades. College rep visits that have taken place already at Burgard High School, Niagara University, NCCC, ECC, Damon University, Canisius University, Buffalo State College, UB, SUNY Canton, Trocaire, Utica University, Alfred State College, and Villa Maria College. So very busy, driven staff person that I have here, as well as she has the support of the other Student Leadership Network staff throughout the district. But I have a very driven person here at Burgard High School, very engaged, very friendly, works together with the teachers, pushes into classrooms, into my grade 12 classrooms to work with students, pulls them out of their study halls to work with them on college applications, scholarships. And it's just been a pleasure to work with Student Leadership Network here at Burgard High School. I hope we're able to continue this work. And that completes my presentation for tonight.
Thank you, Principal Johnson. Mrs. Dixon, was Mike Morris able to get on?
Not yet. I suggested that he call in as well. If you want to give him a few minutes, I can say a few words about Student Leadership Network as well.
Thank you.
Okay, so those of you who don't know me, I'm Mary Ann Dixon. I'm the Director of School Leadership. And most of my job is really the logistics behind getting services into the schools. And Student Leadership Network, we partnered with them back in 2022 with the American Rescue Plan funds, and because we were looking for additional college access services. We knew that we had all of the resources here, especially with the Say Yes Scholarship. We just needed something else to really help our kids get to the colleges that were the best fit for them and to be able to learn about the college experience. And we found Student Leadership Network through a former Associate Superintendent, Toya Wilson. We went to New York City to check them out, to look at the schools that they were in, and to see what their program was and how it could help in Buffalo. And I'm really happy to say that we started off with just wanting to support 4 schools, and we're going into supporting 7 schools, all with the same amount of money. We're not even using any more additional funds. The first year that School Leadership Network was in our district, and one of the first schools that they serviced was Riverside and East. And that year, Riverside's FAFSA completion was so high that they won a national award. And I don't ever remember that happening. I don't remember ever any of the high schools ever receiving an award for FAFSA completion. Now, you and all of us here, we all have post-secondary degrees. Whether we're going to use student aid to pay for our college education, or we're going to pay for it on our own, we still have to fill out the FAFSA form. And we all have extended degrees, and it is not easy. That FAFSA form is not easy. I remember when I was going back for one of my other degrees that I had to fill it out, and it was daunting. It was daunting. It hasn't gotten any easier, especially last year with the debacle that FAFSA had nationally. And our district still had good numbers for the amount of the completion rates. But since Student Leadership Network has been in the district, college application rates have risen from 50% to 75%. College acceptance rates improved from 45 to 61%. Four-year college acceptance rates increased from 27 to 40%. And the FAFSA completion rates at partner schools, and those would be the 6 schools that they're currently working with, 38.4%. They really put their money where their mouth is. The other thing that I do in my job is I have to make sure that the finance piece is accurate as well. And it's a sizable contract. I haven't seen contracts this large since the early school improvement grant days back in 2010, and I think Superintendent Williams-Knight can remember these, when every school got $2 million. So we had these very large contracts, and it was back then that I actually learned how to audit an invoice, which is probably why I do it well today, is that I learned back then. And I was on a call with the Student Leadership Network finance team today to ensure that the practices for delivering an invoice along with all the backup materials were accurate, and that they met the standards that our finance department requires. And they were more than willing to give us whatever we needed in order to make sure that that it was high standard, and that they gave us what we needed in order to make sure that the invoicing was proper for any audits moving forward. So I just can't say enough. And the other is, 6 high schools. As we know, high school principals, they're difficult people. I mean, they've got a lot on their plate. A lot rides on their students, and we want to ensure that every student, 1, graduates, and 2, has the best opportunity to move on in their career, whether it be the trades or higher education. And the 6 principals of these schools, and again, we're going to bring on another 7th one. We're starting that now. Cannot say enough about this. And when those voices are out there and loud, and we need to hear them, and we need to respect what they have to say. So I just can't say enough about what student leadership has done for our high schools and our students as well.
Mary Ann, you just did our whole presentation. Thank you very much.
Sorry.
Do you know if Principal Morris is coming yet? If not, our executive director is on, and we could start if you like.
Please get started, Mr. Morris.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. And Mary Ann, thank you so much. And thank you so much for your partnership and working so closely with our team. We can't do the work without you and all the other principals that we work so closely with. To the school board, thank you so much for making the time to meet with us this evening. We are incredibly excited about our partnership with the Buffalo Public School District and the impact that we're having together to increase post-secondary success for so many deserving young people. I am Yolanda Marshall, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Student Leadership Network. And I am joined on this call today, this evening, with our Chief Innovation Officer and Executive Vice President, John Rory, and our Director of College Access Services, Omar Morris, who you just heard speaking. Omar is actually responsible for the team, leading the team actually, who implements our work both in Buffalo and with a whole host of schools across the country. So we're very grateful for his leadership. We do understand that we only have 8 minutes, I believe, Omar.
Well, we may have a little more. I think
okay, a little bit more
we're ahead
time.
of schedule.
Okay, perfect. So our plan is to provide everyone with an update on our collaborative work across BPS, and we promise to leave a little time to answer questions, any questions that you may have at the end. But let's move to the agenda. Next slide, please. So here's how we're planning to just spend the next few minutes. I've covered intros with who's on the line. Also on the line, I'm sorry, it's Dr. Aaron Hahn. Aaron doesn't have a speaking role, but he certainly is our head of research and data and may need to lean in when we get to the Q&A if necessary. So thank you, Aaron, for joining as well. I'm going to move after this slide to sharing a bit about our vision for our work together, just to ground us, and then I'll turn it over to Omar and John to provide program highlights and the data that supports the collective impact that we've had to date. And then we'll go into what we hope will be, how we plan to expand our collaborative efforts in support of the students that we all serve. And as shared, we'll leave a little time for Q&A. So the next slide, please. Thank you. So, as a few years ago, we actually embarked on a new strategic plan. And that plan was to really broaden our impact and serve more students by partnering with school districts like you, both across New York State and other districts across the country. We have been doing this work, as you may know, for about 30 years now here in partnership with the New York City Public Schools. And we really wanted to move to share our proven practices with other districts. Our mission is simply to serve students who primarily identify as students of color, many of whom will be the first in their families to attend college, and most of whom are growing up in and around poverty. And that's really our mission. And so once we met, and the team met, honestly, with various leaders from the Buffalo Public School District, our vision was to partner with you to create more opportunities, to expose students and their families to college and the wonderful doors that college can open up, and really work with students and their families hand in hand, locking arms to provide dedicated support for the college and financial aid process. The partnership, in our estimation to date, is going well. We hope that you all agree. We are working very closely with school leaders and colleges and other organizations, and we'll share a bit of the data that we have to date in just a moment that supports that our collective efforts are indeed working. And so I'm going to pass it over to Omar now, who will share, the schools that we're partnering with and how our programming is really helping to support student post-secondary success. And then John will jump in after Omar speaks to really share some of the data that we hope that you'll be as excited about as we are, that really speaks to the impact that we're having together. And so I'm going to pass it over to you, Omar.
Next slide, please. So our primary work takes a two-pronged approach. The first component are schools that receive direct services from a full-time college advisor. The second are district-wide events and programs that are available to support all schools across Buffalo, all high schools across Buffalo. Marianne spoke earlier about this part, which is in 2022, we started with East and Riverside, and by 2023, we increased to 6 schools, and this January we welcome MST as the 7th partner school that we're working with. Next slide. So each of the partner schools that we just reviewed, we place a full-time college advisor who works hand in hand with the guidance counselors, school administration, parents, students, to walk them through the entire college access process. Their work is grounded in a time-tested standard components program that we've used since our inception, or have fine-tuned since our inception, which helps lead them through access and enrollment success. We also place a full-time or a part-time college transition coach in each school. This is usually, is a college student and traditionally is an alumni of that school. And they also support the students and the director of college counseling through the college access process. Additionally, our directors of college counseling go through an extensive year-round professional development. This is to ensure that they're prepared to tackle all of the complex barriers which earlier, I think, Dr. Watson also mentioned, all of the complex issues that our families face around this college access and financial process. And finally, all of this work is supported by an amazing central office team that helps with everything from IT, research and analytics, marketing, and all other services, the finance, which Marianne just talked about. All of that is supported by a strong central team here at our main office. Next slide, please. Now, this is just a sampling of the outcomes that occur in the schools that we're partnered with. This has been accomplished by building strong relationships with college reps, by bringing them into the school so that they could see the students and be in their environment with them. Also to be able to expose them to more and more college reps so they understand the options that they have. Also to get students on college campuses so that they could see students like them or see themselves on these campuses. We also facilitating on-site college decision days so that students are getting answers right away to college decisions and educate families on the college process by creating creative and interesting programs that bring the parents out. Next slide, please. I'm going to turn it over to John. Rory.
Yeah, I'm going to pick it up from here, and I apologize for the formatting issue here. This happened when the conversion went into a PDF. So forgive me, this is just some data related to the class of 2022 before our partnership started, and the class of 2023 when we had some directors of college counseling at two of the schools, Riverside and Eastside Community High School. But just to really kick this off, our end goal is really to maximize post-secondary outcomes for students, and more specifically college enrollment as one of the key metrics to really maximize the possibilities and the opportunities for students to have upward social mobility. This is simply a glimpse into the college enrollment data relative to the first class, where we were able to serve an entire cohort of the class of 2023 with the first two schools that we partnered with. And what you'll see here is that that 13% difference in college enrollment within 6 months of high school graduation really represents a 30% increase in the number of students, or 30% improvement in the number of students enrolling in college. Now, just as a disclaimer, the data that we acquire here is from the National Student Clearinghouse, and typically graduating cohorts take about 8 months or so in order for us to get the data vetted and be able to share it. So while this is a preliminary indicator of the very important progress that occurred in those first two schools, the subsequent set of schools that had graduating classes when we had 4 high schools and then 6, i.e. the classes of 2024 and class of 2025, as soon as that data set is available, we will be happy to share that with you. But again, this data sort of lags by 8 months, so we should be receiving that shortly and then being able to process that for the class of 2024. I think what this shows, and as we dive into some of the next slides, is that really with the more years of partnership, the programmatic elements that Omar alluded to earlier really begin to gain traction. We also get to build a strong rapport with school faculty and staff to really increase buy-in and partnership in sort of the development of a college-going culture. And most importantly, we really get to know our families and engage with our students to make sure that they're really informed, that they have educated opinions about their post-secondary options. And so that begins to increase as we engage with our students through these activities, and a subset of student milestones that we help sort of guide our students through. And ultimately, over a longer period of time, you'll see that our leading indicators will start to contribute to these bigger sort of long-lasting indicators around college enrollment. So we could go on to the next slide here. And this is going to give you a little bit of a snapshot on this next slide of just a handful of our student milestones We have upwards of 25 or so key indicators that we try to track and monitor through our directors of college counseling. And in partnership with other school counselors and school leaders, collectively, we support our students to really increase exposure and awareness about what their post-secondary options might be, while also sort of guiding them through the completion of these key milestones. So as I mentioned, what you'll see here is that when we had 4 schools in the class of 2023, you'll see some of the baseline information in the blue lines about where we started with our directors of college counseling and the students in those schools. And then you'll see in the yellow lines how those things, once they gain traction with another year under our belt, with more buy-in and more support from other faculty and staff, we were able to see other significant increases in the sampling of milestones, which includes, acceptance to college and 4-year colleges, et cetera. So you'll see that again, through collaboration, through additional buy-in, and through time, this really begins to take hold, and the formation and the enhancement of a college-going culture in our school buildings really begins to motivate and support sort of the post-secondary outcomes for our students. In addition to that, we keep iterating the fact that, sort of collaboration is super important. We're excited that we've been able to work with our school counselors in the building to do some of this work jointly, and other community members like Say Yes and the local colleges in the area to better support students in FAFSA completion, as well as see an increase in sort of the completion of the Say Yes scholarship application and sort of procurement of some of those dollars to better support their financial aid and long-term sustainability once they do get into college. So we're excited about that. And again, this is reflective of the broader work that we've been able to do with so many folks there in the school buildings. Now, my last slide I want to quickly do is transition to the broader set of capacity building efforts. As Omar mentioned, we sort of have this 2-pronged approach. Much of the work and the beginning work has really focused on the directors of college counseling in these partner schools. But in parallel to that, we have also been working to create what we call capacity building efforts and or activities to better support the broader set of students in the Buffalo School District. And so we've been able to promote these events and create some of these activities so that more students across the district are benefiting from and leveraging some of these key activities and experiences. So
you should be on the next slide, John. Next slide.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. So next slide. So this slide is really on the left-hand side, going to highlight a handful of what those capacity building efforts have looked like. And then I'll shift over quickly in sort of thinking about what the future can hold, particularly in the second half of this year. So you'll see here we have FAFSA completion events, we have college visits, and college access shut-in days. Those shut-in days really refer to sort of the completion and focus of college applications and or other post-secondary applications for like training programs and the like. So these activities have been offered and spread sort of word of mouth to other schools. So we know for sure like schools like 131, Lafayette, City Honors, Hutch Tech, Bennett, Emerson are schools that have participated in some level of these activities last year. And last year alone, a subset of these activities had served close to 700 other students that weren't participating in our partner high schools with support from our directors of college counseling. So we're excited about that broader impact we're able to have with more students and more schools. And our intent is really to build more collaboration with existing departments, supervised by Assistant Superintendent Watson, managed by Allison Newman's college readiness team, as well as ongoing work with Say Yes and other colleges in the area to, again, bring more attention and bring more capacity to these efforts so that collectively, as a sort of ecosystem in Buffalo, we're working side by side to create more opportunities and better supports for the broader set of students. And in doing so, building capacity, building traditions and best practices so that we can continue to do this work for years to come. And so that's where a lot of the focus is going to be in the second half of the year. And we're already lining up a meeting, I believe next week or so, with Allison Newman's college readiness team, as well as others, to really start thinking about where are the points of intersection. How can we really begin to focus on professional learning communities that bring together the directors of college counseling, school counselors across more schools, and other college access or post-secondary supports in the ecosystem to really share best practices, start looking at data, think about how we could plan together, as a few examples. In addition to that, we want to enhance some of the programming. So you'll see some of these things here with regards to college visits. We're working on some specialized programs that will include ideally a HBCU college tour, as well as potentially a panel of HBCU admissions representatives or alumni representatives to really help inform students who have those specific interests, while also understanding that every student may not pursue a post-secondary outcome that is college. We also want to bring to the table some of the other career-oriented alternative pathway programs into that dialogue as well. And then lastly, especially with the changes in the FAFSA, it is really paramount and important for us to work collaboratively to better support students and families, particularly through one of those key milestones like completing the FAFSA. So our intent is really to build out and offer more multilingual workshops and really explore what the possibilities might be to provide virtual supports from, again, the sort of consortium of supporters in the community to meet families and students where they're at in case they can't attend the events at school or can't get one-on-one support from a school counselor or DCC. We might be able to create some workshops virtually to better support families through that very complicated process, or at least what is perceived to be complicated. And so with that said, that's sort of our snapshot. I'm going to pass it over to Yolanda to wrap it up, and then we'll open for questions and answers.
No, I think we can just jump into seeing if anyone has any questions. We can always make ourselves available if you come up with something or have a question after we wrap up today, but we did want to leave a little space for some Q&A.
I have Principal Mike Morris here before we go to questions, please. Principal Morris.
Hey everyone, thank you for welcoming me and having me here tonight. John and Omar, you kind of took a lot of our data for Principal Johnson and myself, so I guess I'm just going to talk about the relationship piece that the Student Leadership Network has brought to our schools. I can't talk enough about Kayla Powell and how she's facilitated this work at South Park. We historically have always, talked to our students about college, but did we really show them, provide that access, that exposure? And that's what the Student Leadership Network has provided, to South Park, and I'm sure Eric will talk about that too. Today was a special day. We had alumni, the last two graduating classes, physically coming back to the school to talk about their shared experiences, to also talk about how Student Leadership Network helped them navigate not only, the application process, FAFSA, but, that work with their parents and their families is so powerful. So just the paradigm shift for us, that truly now when we talk about college, we can show, we can bring them to campuses. It's not just public, it's also private. To see the smiles on their faces when they have multiple applications and they've been accepted in schools, that makes the day obviously for them, but it's so powerful because now they're sharing it with their peers and you're changing a culture within a school. And, John and Omar know this. I've been in the district many years. We've been fortunate to have great partners, but I so truly appreciate the work that they do. The promises they've made, they follow through. It's really been an unbelievable experience for such a short time, and I'm extremely thankful to them.
Thank you, Principal Morris.
At this point, we can open up. Oh.
Sure, we could open up for questions. What I'll do is I'll give each board member an opportunity. I'll start with Board Member Woods. Do you have anything?
I just want to say it's an excellent program, and I was going to ask you, how did you pick the schools that you focused on? But then you pointed out that you are reaching out and including all schools. So I greatly appreciate that because all of our students need these type of supports so we can increase them going to college. And the other thing is, I appreciate that you said you're aware that just four-year college isn't the only answer. So you're broadening out to, their 8-month programs, 12-month programs, a lot of people make more money than us college grads. My plumber makes more than I do. So I just want to applaud your program and ask you to continue to expand.
Okay. Board Member Scott? No?
Thank you, Board Member Shuda. Thank you for the great presentation and all the hard work and your partnership. I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Okay. Board Member McCutcheon?
Echo Board Member Larry Scott's sentiments. Thank you for a great presentation. No questions.
Okay. Board Member Marcosi?
Also echo Board Member McCosey, Board Member Scott. Yes, I'm very, I feel well informed, so no questions. Thank you.
One of our new board members, Board Member Zulich.
Hi, thanks everyone. I just wanted to, I guess, lift up some of the things I heard that I really loved. For Principal Johnson at Burgard, the inviting parents and families in for senior parent night, junior parent night. I love to hear about family engagement and celebrating college acceptance, making it an event. Mr. Rohr, hearing about meeting families and students where they're at. I think sometimes we have expectations or ideas that don't necessarily meet the reality of some situations. So yeah, I mean, bringing colleges in, and Mr. Principal Morris, changing the school culture. I feel like so many, whether it's attendance or suspensions or lots of things, that it starts with admin and it kind of like trickles down into the building. I'm glad you're on board with this and everybody is doing this work. Thank you.
That chair is Board Member Beltman-Cotman. No. And Board Member Everhart.
Terry, for a great presentation. Thank you very much. Principals, for your presentation. It was amazing. It reminds me of the Liberty Partnership Program. I'm a product of, I would have known nothing about college. There was no expectation for me to go to college. First generational college student sitting right here. And it's just such important work. So thank you so much.
President Evans Brown.
To echo all of my colleagues, especially Janita Everhart. I was one of the first directors of Liberty Partnerships programs at UB. And so when I was listening to the presentation, I was so excited to hear about it. And I don't know if this was a setup, but I was speaking to one of my former staff who now works for the Student Leadership Network. I had no idea what the Student Leadership Network was until I was reminded by Ms. Dixon. And it was 2 years ago, I think, when they had their FAFSA competition and Burgard won it. And so I started making the connection. I'm like, this is really a setup. So my main thing is, well, a couple of questions. Well, this is a statement first. When you talk about counselors, you can't really replace them guidance counselors. They're so overwhelmed with all this other stuff. And so last time I did my research, counselor ratio was 400 to 1. I don't think that's changed much. And so to have a program like the Student Leadership Network is huge. I think it's a milestone that our kids need. And you're absolutely right. A number of them are first-time generation college students. I was one back in the day. And so it's necessary for kids to understand the nuances that are involved, in this whole college process, this whole training process if they don't go to college, etc. So my question is, where's your main office? How many staff are housed in the schools that you mentioned?
Take a stab at answering that for you. We are located in New York City. That's our main headquarters. We operate in 26 schools in New York City. So those schools in New York City are Title I public high schools that have full-time directors of college counseling as well, with serving a similar demographic to the Buffalo School District student population as well. We have one school that we partner with in Rochester, and then we have the 6, soon to be 7 schools in Buffalo. Those are our sort of employees, and they are also supported by supervisory staff like Omar and many other program team members, along with the back office staff as well. So we're an organization of about 78 employees, and close to half of those are school-based employees that operate in a similar capacity. In addition to that, we provide consulting services to a handful of other schools in other parts of the country, but they're not districts. They're sort of single standing schools or a couple schools where we coach their college advisors to think about and apply some of the best practices that we offer, while also working with them to create new ideas to best serve their student population in school.
Well, thank you for that.
Dr. Evans-Brown, I just want to double down on what you said about guidance counselors and the ratio, and you're right, it hasn't changed at all. And in fact, in New York City, it's probably closer to 500 to 1. And the work that we do is to not replace guidance counselors. They're super, super important. But the work that we do is solely focused on college. The guidance counselors have so many things that they're responsible for, and it really works best when we have a partnership with the guidance counselors and are working hand in hand in the best interest of students. So thank you for flagging that. We didn't think it was a setup, but if it is, I'm glad it's a setup.
Well, good, and kudos to you. Kudos to you. And you've been in our school, and I guess you have a contract with us, right?
Yes.
So we would love to see that continue because it is working. Your data proves that, it's working. So thank you.
Board Member Beltman-Cotman, would you like to? Do you have anything you'd like to add? You're muted.
Hear me at all?
Yes, we can. Yes.
So I had difficulty getting in, as many people, I guess, did. But no, I'm really impressed with this service, and I thank you very much for the work that you're doing. Thank you much.
Okay, thanks. And I'd like to finish. I was the principal at South Park High School for 11 years. And I retired, it probably seems like a million years ago to Mr. Morris, but it's only been, I think, 4 short years. And I think the thing that I like the most about this program is when the kids graduate, you don't stop caring for them. And what we've always found is, sure, we can get them to graduate, but our real goal is how do we get them to get through college? And I've always thought, in my mind, can we have like a counselor that just has office hours to help our kids? But I see that's what Kayla is doing at South Park High School. And I don't know if she's a model of what you have as an employee, but I know that it's her mission and she cares and she's dynamic and the kids know she cares. And for those kids today, I don't know, Mr. Morris, if there were 6 or 8 or 9 alumni that were there on time, on stage, happy to share their story. They came from Brockport, Mercyhurst, UB, Canisius, Buff State. There was a wide variety of colleges, and those kids, it was just a beautiful thing to experience. And when I asked Dr. Williams-Knight to bring this is such a great program. I'm not sure everyone even was really familiar of the great work that was being done. And the board, we have funded this. We should celebrate that we're doing something that's going to help kids and families. And so we appreciate your hard work. We appreciate what you're doing. And let's just celebrate this is something no other school in Western New York is, any school district in Western New York is doing to support kids, and that's what it's all about. So, Dr. Williams, if you'd like to finish up.
Presentation, I want to tell this group, you know, this is a tough group to come before, and you know, everyone had very, very positive, you know, things to share, and they would be honest. You know, our principals, Director Dixon, and our board, they would be very, very honest. What I heard tonight was really exciting. Navigating college access is hard. You know, the FAFSA, the cost, HBCU or not an HBCU, you know, if you're an athlete, the NCAA, and, you know, it's so much. And like you shared, our school counselors, you know, they're dealing with scheduling and, you know, restorative practices and just all kinds of things. So, you know, thank you. Thank you for the work that you're doing. I wish I had been there today to hear, you know, the alumni come back, because students really learn from other young folks when they hear from them, like, you know, what it's really like when you go and you stay on campus. You got to have those extra long twin sheets on your beds, or, you know, or don't fit. So, you know, all those kinds of things that, you know, they're used to taking classes every day, the same class. College, you may have classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays and not on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And you can get lost if you're not prepared for all of that. So, you know, you're offering a really important service, and I want to thank you for it. And we'll be looking to just continue to see this flourish and hear good work that's happening. Thank you.
We appreciate it.
We can't thank you all enough. And for us, the work is so deeply personal. We all know what education has done for our families, and we just want to put more students on that path, the right path for them, right? It's not 4-year college for everybody, but everybody needs a post-secondary plan. And in partnership with you all, we can continue to do great work in Buffalo. And there'll be more alumni coming back, Dr. Williams, and we'll make sure that you can see them. It's just a part of what we do. We want to make sure that it's a college-going culture. And so by the time you get to 11th grade, it's not where am I going, but it's like, what's my plan? And we're just there to support them every step along the way. And we can't do it without a partnership with you all. So thank you for working so closely with us. And thank you for the principals. We see you on the call.
And changing the life of one of our students, one student going to college can change generations that follow. I mean, the expectations change. So it's important work.
I think also, in addition to the alumni coming back and speaking to other students, what we're finding at a lot of our schools, that alumni are coming back and speaking to the teachers about their experiences, which then informs how the teachers are further supporting the students. And in some cases, students are coming back saying, you were right. I should have read more. I should have written more. And having then the students say that to teachers then reinforces what they know, but then having them then explain that to students, not just all of the other stuff, but I should have read more. I'm now writing 20-page papers when I was struggling or not wanting to write a 5-page paper. Now I have to write 20. I should have spent more time. Use the resources of the tutoring services and all of that stuff. So all of that is a lot of information that comes from the alumni, not just for the students, but for the staff as well.
Not only that, what I witnessed today was the pride of the teachers. And that's something that the teachers were so proud in embracing the kids, and just were so excited to hear about their story. And that really, reinforces the community support for those students. And they know that there's a place that they can, contact if they need help. So that's what that was another good thing today.
Teresa, if I can add really quick, 3 quick things. Number one, you talked about our people. I think the power of our program is our people. And honestly, to Yolanda's point, we cannot do this work alone. So there's a ton of collaboration that's occurring with principals like Mr. Johnson and Mr. Morris and everybody else, including the back end work that we're doing, Marianne and Julie. It truly takes a village. And I think all of you are part of the village, and we're happy that you invited us into that village to be able to do more for the students in Buffalo. And then lastly, just to again reemphasize some of what you were alluding to with sort of the guidance counselor ratio, We have systemic issues in this country, period, point blank. And our students that look like me, that come from low income backgrounds like me, are oftentimes forgotten or marginalized. And, you know, our mission, and now our collective mission, is to ensure that that does not occur. When we look at our North Star in this country today, higher income students are enrolling in college at 73% of each graduating class. Their lower income peers, which are most of our students and our students here in New York, it's 50%. That's a 23% point difference in who gets to start off in college. A, that's not acceptable. And B, together, we're gonna change that for the students in Buffalo. So again, to Superintendent Williams, everybody on the board, all the principals, school counselors, partners like Say Yes, and everybody else that's involved in this work in Buffalo, we're gonna do more work together in the best way possible and the smartest way possible to ensure that we maximize opportunities for the students that attend the Buffalo School District. So again, we're grateful for your partnership. We're grateful for the opportunity to share a little bit more about this work. And any follow-ups, please feel free to address any of us, and we'll do our best to support and answer those questions.
And we look forward to it. Thank you so much. And now I
Thank you all.
turn over my committee.
Okay.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody. So, Madam Superintendent, I'm going to let you just open if you have a few words, since I am going to talk about and give the updates. I don't really need to open. You can introduce that.
All right. Thank you so much, Vice President McKechnie. So we've got some goals for this year, and we also are working really hard on establishing and solidifying our longer range goals for 5 years. And I know that we have a retreat where we're going to really be digging, deep into this work to get it all solidified. As a reminder for this year, we're focusing on our literacy for 3rd graders, numeracy for 6th graders, and then we have 2 high school goals for this year for our 9th graders. One is that, all of our, not all, but 39.5% of our 9th graders will pass at least one of their Regents exams by this August. And the other is that 64% of our 9th graders will earn the 5.5 credits needed to move on to 10th grade, and they will earn those by June of 2025. Now, in addition to that, I've been working very, very closely with our Office of Shared Accountability as we're looking at the longer range goals, our 5-year goals that will start as of July 1st, 2025, and will run through June 30th of 2030. That seems like forever away, but it'll be here before we know it. So I will turn things over to Chairwoman and Vice President McKechnie, and I'll jump in and support.
Thank you. No, that's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. I appreciate it. You actually teed it up really well. I have 2 items that I'm going to just discuss today, and these are things that we have discussed a few times and quite regularly over the past year, but the first of it is the superintendent evaluation. And thank you for teeing it up and reiterating some of the goals that we have for this year and reminding everybody that we did come up with 1-year goals. And to that end, we tasked a ad hoc committee of board members to come together and review the tool that we use and the content in the tool. And we had President Evans-Brown, as well as Board Member Woods and Board Member Shuda come together and meet pretty rigorously. They had a fairly short timetable. So these ladies came together and review the document to ensure that language was appropriate, establish what were felt to be appropriate metrics, and make sure that we incorporated some of the language for the 24-25 goals. This is something that's typical, it's normal, it's not out of the realm of anything that we would do on an annual basis to make sure that it's relevant. And then, of course, meet with the superintendent to make sure that all of this makes sense and we are all on the same page. We did have a presentation, I believe it was on the 4th of December, from the committee offering us some of their thoughts and feedback and giving us an idea of what this looks like. And then the last piece of the puzzle was establishing kind of the metric breakdown. Board members have had opportunities to exchange thoughts and comments, and I am just excited to say that we did it in the time frame that we established. And I wanted to raise up and give kudos to this team, the ad hoc team that came together to make sure that we got this done. Yes, you guys were amazing, and we stuck to that timetable. On our end, there's nothing more that we need to do. It's done and it's ready, but the goal of just acknowledging that today was so that we can tie it up and be good at this point and recognize the team that did some great work to get us there. So thank you. We then have the 25 through 30 goals and guardrails. So this has been a year-long process, and tonight we're not going into anything very deep. We have done this at what feels like nauseam over quite a few work sessions and community sessions. If you recall, in the spring, all board members participated in 16 community listening sessions that gave us the opportunity to hear from our community as to what is important. At the same time that we were out there doing community listening sessions, the superintendent and her team was putting together a comprehensive report and some data to give us a snapshot of where students in the district were in that moment. We then came together as a group for a retreat in August, and we were looking at all of the trends, all of the data, and spent an entire day together along with the superintendent and members of her team to work through and develop goals based on the feedback we received from community. Once those goals were put together, and Admir, in a second I will have you pull up the slides, but I just want to make sure you are ready. But in an effort to keep the process going along, once we established the goals, the superintendent then had more work to do with her team to develop interim goals and guardrails to offer to us. We had lots of presentations and lots of conversation over the early fall and into the mid-fall period about the interims, and even working through and adjusting the actual goals and guardrails themselves. I'm excited because we did get a presentation in November, and we as a board, I think, felt good with where we were at, recognizing that this is not coming into place officially until July, as the superintendent mentioned, and we have space, but that we're in a good place. We've really got some concrete goals, guardrails, and interims that reflect what we've heard and give us this opportunity to track growth as we move forward. The next step fell back on us as board members, and 4 of us went out and we held feedback sessions in the 4 quadrants of the city. This happened over a period, a 2-week period in December. So thank you, Board Member Makosi, Board Member Shuda, and President Kathy Evans-Brown for joining me in that endeavor. And Kathy Evans-Brown, President, and I also recorded a video that went out digitally along with a digital feedback form, thanks to help of the district making us look and sound amazing. So we appreciated that as well. And the opportunity was to offer feedback back, to the community of where we settled on our goals and guardrails, and are we off base? We did not receive any alarming feedback saying we were off base, which is exciting. And so that brings us to the next step, which I am thrilled that we got here, because it has been a year of moving through this to get there. I see you smiling, Superintendent, because it has been a year getting us here, but we got here. And so I am excited, and Admir, if you could pull up the slides, that would be amazing. And you can go right into that next slide. So these are the 25 through 30 goals. And remember, the intention of goals is to reveal the community's vision for its student outcomes. Next slide, Admir. So our draft goals that were presented, there are 4 of them, and they relate to college and career readiness, literacy, and we have 2 goals for numeracy. I am not going to read each goal, and I will recognize that while there are blanks where you see college and career readiness, the superintendent and her team are working on getting that data so we have our starting points. And we're working through that, recognizing that these don't go into effect until July, and this information will come in front of the board and we'll have discussion about it. But the language is what we're focusing on. We've agreed on the language of those particular goals. Admir, if you would go to the next slide. Guardrails. So as you've heard us talk goals and guardrails a lot. So guardrails, that is the values that represent the community. So this is what we're going to do to, or how we'll behave to accomplish the goals. If you go to the next slide. Thank you. So we came up with 2 guardrails, and that is equitable allocation and culture and climate. And I will say, we gave the superintendent some tough guardrails that really required her and her team to spend some time going back through that data and using feedback that has come through over the superintendent's tenure to develop interims that match where we're at right now. And I think that her and her team did a great job in that space. Admir, you can pull the slides down at this moment. So next steps, where we are at. After a year-long process, it is my hope that we will have the interim goals and guardrails added to the agenda at the board meeting next week for us as a board to adopt and be able to move forward. So we know what we're working off of. We'll continue to fill in those blank data points to ensure that we are ready for that July 1st launch. But as the superintendent indicated, coming up in about a week and a half, we have a retreat with the Council of Great City Schools, and our coach, Leslie Grant, will be in town to get us started on what 2025 looks like. What are our next steps? What can we expect as we roll out the new goals? What is monitoring going to look like? How are we going to ensure that we are keeping tabs on all of the objectives that we set forth? So we will learn all about those next steps on January 17th, I believe is the date. January 17th in the afternoon. So we will be having a board retreat. So those are my updates at this point. I will open it up if anybody has any thoughts or discussion, but I do want to just highlight we have an implementation team, and that team is Dr. Kathy Evans-Brown, so President Evans-Brown, as well as Board Member Shuda and myself. And kudos to these 2 ladies also for their extra meetings to make sure that we were getting the work done and continuing to move this process forward. But congratulations, everyone. We got there. I cannot necessarily see if somebody raises their hand, and I'm not going to call on all of you for the sake of time. So if there are thoughts, feel free to unmute and share them. Otherwise, I will offer final thoughts from the superintendent if she has any.
I'm just going to jump in.
Yes,
Sorry.
absolutely.
I love being on this side of it now. In April, I got to go as a community member to give some of my input with Cindy and our president.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I'm just looking forward to seeing this come to fruition. I kind of inherited it, I guess, but during our tenure.
It's exciting. And our 2 new board members will be joining the SOF board cohort that several of our board members went through last year. So that's pretty exciting. I can't wait to hear what you guys have to tell us and your experiences. So I think it's going to be super helpful as we continue to move this forward.
Okay, are there no questions from anyone else or comments?
Job well done.
Yeah, it was a good synopsis and summary, Cindy. You did
Yes.
good. I taught you well.
Well, I started a lot of this work, you know, working really closely with our now president, Dr. Evans Brown, and it wasn't always easy or clear for me where we were going, which is why language is so important, you know, in the goals, so that we are all clear on exactly what's expected. That's the only way that I can then dispatch and motivate and inspire, you know, my whole team, our schools, and everyone to get behind what the goals are. So kudos to everyone that has been, you know, working on this. And I know some of you have traveled and you know, you're learning more and more about this work. And as you learn more and more, so am I. And so I just want to say this was good work. It was hard work. It was a year-long, you know, body of work, and it'll continue. But, you know, it feels like we're moving it forward.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to say
So I do have a question.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
So when I look at the charts and I look at where our students that we're focused in on, where they are, and I look at where the other students are, has there been any conversation on how do we eventually make those students put together some goals that will allow those children to eventually catch up with the other children?
I'm not sure if I fully understand your question, but if I am, I'm going to try to answer it. And if I'm off, I might need clarity. But the thought process behind being rather specific in how you generate the goals is that if you try to accomplish everything, you don't accomplish anything, right? So we're being very specific based on information and data and what we know so that we can have an intentional focus, right? And we're going through this process and we'll be monitoring the progress of the goals that we've set and the guardrails that we have, but it by no means says that we disregard anything else. And under the model, the thought process is, as you start to build in change, you start to see change in all spaces, right? You start to see transition. And so that's the thought process. It gives us something a little bit more focused so that we don't get too broad that it gets lost. But you by no means ignore everything else.
I wasn't referring to that. I wasn't referring to that. What I was specifically referring to is that looking at the growth of our students that are not the free and reduced lunch program. Mm-hmm. And my question was, if we have any conversation in making sure that we eventually have the free and reduced children catch up with the other children. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about broad anything. I'm talking about if we, after 5 years, only have 35% of that group of students, okay, how do we eventually craft something to make sure that those children eventually catch up? And that's the question that I'm asking. Sometimes there would be possible stretch goals or whatever. And so I'm pleased about the work that's being done. Certainly, I'm happy that everything is working. But my concern at this point is, how do we take those children who are not where they should be and get them at least to a greater extent of where, I mean, last year we talked about, we knocked it out of the park. Some of the work that was done. Okay. And since it was not projected, it was a gift for us. And what I'm trying to do is to see, when do we on the graph where we have the children that are functioning at a higher level, when do we get those children to eventually merge with those? Is it 10 years down the line? Is it 15? Without some stretch goals or without, that's my concern about that.
I think that's part of the monitoring of the goals, right? As we go through and we continue to monitor the goals and we monitor them regularly, we're going to see trends. We're going to see how things are moving. And we set numbers, but that does not mean, like, it's any type of strategic plan or anything that's in place. It's all moldable, right? It moves and it changes, and none of it is concretely fixed, right? Because you cannot predict the future. You can have best guesses and hope that you can put approaches together, but the idea of a continuous monitoring or progress monitoring throughout each year, it allows for continuous evaluation and re-evaluation. So we may find that it is more reasonable to add, right, a higher number or be able to move, because we're actually able to move this trajectory a lot faster than we thought. But we want to be realistic in what we're going through. And I don't know that this is the first time we're going into a process like this, and there's a bit of a learning curve. And yes, we did our, our pilot year last year, if you will. But that was absolutely a learning curve for all of us as we tried to figure out how that worked, what it looked like, and quite frankly, rush through the process, skipping big pieces of it just to establish goals. So then this year we created those year goals. We have them, another set of 1-year goals, but we don't have anything with consistency at this point, right? Because we keep kind of making modifications, changing as we're going through the process. I think once we adopt, and this is my personal opinion, so I can't speak for everybody, but once we adopt this 5-year plan, that really gives the superintendent and her team opportunity to really fix on this space, right? Because we've established and locked into something that is 5 full years. We're not looking at 1 year with a possible, shift to completely different goals, right? Or full change in language. We're looking at 5 years locked into a space that really allows for us to spend some time developing, and for the superintendent and her team to spend that time developing. So I think, we're entering a different territory, and it's not to ignore that this is on top of what does exist, which is that 5 by 25, and there's been movement in space in that way. And ours blends in some ways with that, but there is some difference in terms of the monitoring. So I'm excited and hopeful that we'll have robust conversations over the next year, especially once these go into effect. And that we will be able to really look at what is realistic. Right now, we're projecting.
And I think to add to what Cindy's saying, in these goals, there are opportunities where when the accountability team provided this data, there were a number of kids who were 2 grades behind. And so they're in this group to look at, I don't have it in front of me, but the goals depict that we have kids who are two years behind. So they came to us, and we're meeting them where they are. And so to have the subtle changes and have a system in place is where we're going to get those kids from point A to point B in a quicker way.
I agree with everything that I've heard. I think, coming out of COVID, I know that, there's some that say, okay, COVID is over, but the effects of it, continue to linger. And it's happening at a time where, we've experienced a budget deficit, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes, of $180 million, and trying to still maintain all of the supports that we know that our children need. So we have to be realistic. We had to look at trend data, which we did. We didn't just look at 3 years of data and how the children were doing, but we looked at 5 years. And, I just found some information out today that is really, encouraging, and lets me know that it's not just 1 or 2 grade levels that we're focusing on, but, I thought that we had increased our enrollment by 300 or so students. I found out today it's 510. That means that, the community has confidence in this district, that, the growth that we are experiencing is going to continue to be built upon. Our teachers are excited about what they see happening with our children. And I always say the way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. And so I know that we want to just quickly get there. We all do. We all do. But, you know, it is such a process that we have to keep building on and getting better and better and better. And so if we've got 40% of our third graders reading on grade level in 5 years, I would expect that that would be, you know, possibly double. You know, looking at the data, we got to look at the data and see what it looks like. And the goals that we set are just minimum benchmarks. That's not what we're saying we're going to get there and stop. We want to get, you know, beyond there. So if we say that, you know, it's a 2% increase, certainly if we hit 2% within 3 or 4 months, then I'm going to expect that, you know, that 2% grows to 4 or 5 or 6%. But we keep building. And so to get all of our children, you know, at the same level, it may take more than 5 years for us to be able to do that. So we're going to keep working at it. We're going to work really hard, just like we did last year, like we're doing this year. And I think we're going to continue to see outcomes that are just going to continue to increase. So our enrollment has increased by 510. That is huge. That is huge because we haven't had that happen in over a decade. So that's huge. So I'm really excited about that. And I think it's all of these things that we're talking about from the presentations earlier to this presentation that are supporting that happening. So.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent. Then I am going to go ahead and pass it along to Chairwoman Woods.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. Welcome to the Finance and Operations final session of the night.
Welcome back, Madam Paulette Woods, Chair, Finance Committee.
One of the most important, thank you. One of the most important things this board does, other than hiring a superintendent, is passing a budget. That's our fiduciary responsibility. And your budget is your statement of priority, where you put your money where your mouth is. That's what you get accomplished. We have several presentations. It is budget season, y'all. 2025-26 budget. This is budget season. We're starting the preparation of that budget. We are still reviewing our capital budget, implementing our capital budget. And we have several projects such as the commissary project, things ongoing that we are accomplishing in this year. So budgeting and operations is always a multi-year ongoing process. And we have very capable CFO, very transparent superintendent. So I'm going to give it to the superintendent to give her remarks and introduce our CFO for this finance and operations presentation.
All righty, thank you, Madam Chairwoman. And I think we're right on schedule. We're right on time. So I want to keep it that way. I'm going to turn things over to our Chief Financial Officer, who does a magnificent, incredibly complex job in helping to frame this budget. You're right, we're kicking it off. It feels like, you know, it never stops. There's never really a lull with the budget, but, you know, there's a lot of good work that's happening, but we've got some challenges ahead of us, just like, you know, we did last year, and it seems almost every year, but we do have some challenges, but I believe we are up to the challenge of doing what's best for our students under the circumstances. I meet almost every day with our CFO, and he's going to present tonight. I believe it's three presentations talking about our capital project, our commissary, and kind of where we are right now in the work. So I will turn things over to Chief Barnes to take us through the presentations.
Thank you, Superintendent. I appreciate the kind words. And Mrs. Woods, looking forward to working with you again. So the first presentation tonight is just an update on where we are on the budget process and the next steps. I'm going to focus my remarks solely on the budget, but in the title is the 4-year plan. as a district, we don't financially plan just 1 year out. The 4-year plan is actually our most important planning tool. And I think that's a key reason for our financial health. But you got to start with the budget. So, Ed, your next slide. So, the big picture. This is the second year of the superintendent's 2-year plan that we're now calling the ending of the Art Besser fiscal crisis. That's a phrase coined by the superintendent, and I think it's very fitting. The first year of the plan in this year, 24-25, we utilized $83.5 million of our reserves to fund the budget deficit during this transition year. That level of a deficit obviously cannot be sustained. The second year of our 4-year plan, that's the 25-26 year, calls for reducing this deficit down to $36,400,000. That should be our initial target to stay on track with our longer-term planning. More specific information on the budget process will be communicated through the annual superintendent's kickoff memo. That'll be distributed within a week. I have passed along a copy of that to Mrs. Woods, and I think the superintendent in that memo frames the challenges and the opportunities perfectly. The remainder of tonight's presentation will just provide some very quick, high-level information on the budget process schedule and make note of some challenges and some offsetting good news that we've already gleaned from our analysis of the financial and other data sources. And your next slide. Here's what the budget calendar looks like. I won't read every cell, but we've already gathered some indicators on what our revenues will be next year. But the governor's budget proposal and the school aid runs, they're not released until about January 15th, sometime as late as the 20th. The superintendent's kickoff memo and the budget process package will be distributed within a week. And then on either January 29th or the 30th, the school-based budgets will be available. We've got most of the work already done on those, and we'll start distributing those out and having the meetings. Early February, we do training session in person and group trainings at 2 sites. And any department that ever needs one-on-one training, you could just call the budget department and they'll be there for you. By mid-March, it's the deadline for the departments to have reviewed their staff in Munis and entered their detailed budget entry. And March 17th, the SBMT submit their school-based budget. So things really start taking off in February. By mid-March, we can start providing some initial budget reports for you. I meet with the cabinet during the level 2 to review any large variances or special needs or requests. And then the school-based budget review meetings are from March 17th to the 31st. The final state budget is usually passed around April 7th, and that's when we get our final state aid revenues. Our budget will obviously be revised for those numbers. Then the rest of the period from April to May, it's really submissions of budgets and 4-year plans to the city, to the control board, numerous presentations to this board. And we hope to have the board adopt the budget on 5/21 this year. So that's the calendar, and all this again will be included with the superintendent's kickoff memo. I want to end this presentation with the next slide, Edmure, please. Prior to the budget kickoff, the budget department is doing a lot of work. We call it informed context. We're always analyzing data and trends and accessing different state websites for financial indicators. So we know right now the environment that we're headed toward next year. So the expected cost increase. Based upon our salary projections, we take every person currently working to give them their salary increase, their step increase, their longevity increase, and that goes into the initial budget calculations. Salaries will increase by about $32 million based on the current bargaining unit salaries. Then based upon the salary cost increases and some other factors, we see approximately $12 million increase in benefits. Now, based upon a relatively small increase in charter enrollments, but a state and board of regents approved change in tuition formulas, we're expecting a $15 million increase in charter-related expenditures. $11 to $12 million of that will be due to this formula change. And then based upon a new transportation contract, we expect about a $10 or $15 million increase in those first student-related expenditures. Now, somewhat offsetting these increases, there'll be a potential for a 2 to 3% increase in foundation aid. We'll start getting our first indicators with the governor's budget. We already have early indicators. There'll be a $15 million reduction in our debt service payments, principal and interest. Our total debt will be below $300 million as we start out next year. I'm going to bring this fact back in when we talk about the capital project and bond. We're going to have a $15 million reduction in principal and interest. And then lastly, those increases in transportation costs I noted, they're approximately 90% reimbursable, but the following year. So during the first year where there's a lag in getting the reimbursement, it's a cash flow issue you got to manage through. But in that second year, the increases in cost and aid start balancing off. The next step will be the superintendent's kickoff memo, which truly outlines what we're facing next year, along with all the schedules, due dates, deadlines, budget liaison contacts that all the departments need. So that's the end of this presentation. It's really just to let the board know the process will be starting and give you a flavor for the context that we'll be operating within the ship. So Mrs. Woods, I'm done with this presentation.
I'll let you mute it.
Are there any questions on the budget? Larry Scott, I see your hand.
Thank you. Chief Barnes, just a quick question on the charter formula change. Is that in effect for this current school year, or is it beginning next school year?
It's beginning next school year.
Okay, but that's based on a change that was approved in last year's budget, state budget?
Correct, and it came out of the Board of Regents, not even like New York State Ag, and I don't know, it wiggles its way through, but they just got such powerful advocates at the state, Larry. They were supposed to implement it this year. They pushed it back to implementing to July 1st of 2025, and it came from the Board of Regents.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Yep.
Any other board members want to raise any questions about these challenges in the budget? Seeing no questions, Mr. Barnes, you want to move on to the next area?
Sure, Mr. Admir, could you please put up the capital budget and financing update? Thank you. So when I ended my presentations on December 4th of last year, I think the last sentence was we had hoped to provide some updates on progress made in both the capital budget and the commissary. And I think we have both of those tonight. I'm going to start with the capital budget and financing update. Admir, next slide. Thank you. Start with the big picture. The Board of Ed approved capital plan, including a project overview, financing plan, and the impact on the district's general fund, was presented to the board on December 4th. Tonight, we're presenting the current status of the plan and updates to keep everyone informed as we work our way through this process. The original plan was included in the board-approved 4-year plan. It's been reviewed and approved, in quotes, by the BFSA and external auditors. They have another term rather than approved. There are 27 projects in the plan, Buff State and Da Vinci, plus 26 smaller health and safety-related projects. Those 26 smaller projects were part of an intentional strategy to hit some singles and doubles and get some work completed. I've been communicating additional details on these projects and plans to Chairman Woods. We started that conversation today with a bunch of emails early this morning. The original plan was to be funded through a $54 million bond sale and $10 million in district cash. As I explained at the last meeting, the bond proceeds are used to pay the vendors, and the debt payments on that debt are offset almost dollar for dollar by building aid over a 15-year period. Again, this wasn't some original unique strategy. It's actually the New York State Ed preferred method of financing larger capital projects. Edmure, next slide. So it's a rather multi-step involved process, somewhat new to everybody. So I want to give you some status updates. We have, in the past couple of weeks and days, we've met 2 important requirements for a potential bond sale through the city. Number 1, the plan was included in the city's approved capital budget. I know there was a lot of uproar over that. All that was is a requirement to get it on that approved capital budget in case you can or want to bond. We met the controller's request to have information packets submitted to her office by January 6th, Monday at 4:30. For them to review in time to create bond resolutions for the Common Council. So the data was submitted, they're analyzing it now, they pass it along to the Bond Council, who asks another round of questions for us to answer, with the hope for outcome that a bond resolution is created for each of the projects we submitted. Another required step in order to bond. A specific project breakdown is provided below. I noted earlier there were 27 separate projects. The A&E firms, they were to submit design and construction documents to the state by January 1st of 2025. 16 of those 27 projects met that deadline. These projects were submitted to the controller's office. 6 additional projects should have their designs submitted to the state within 3 weeks. These projects may receive what you call authorized by unissued status. May, not for certain. Then there are 5 projects that will not be submitted in time to include in the bond sale. I don't want to belabor this, but that's why it was so important to get our 27 projects on the city's capital budget. We knew that there were subsequent steps that would eliminate some of those projects from the bonding. So we got 16 projects sitting at the state. They've informed us of an 8-week review and approval process. Our implementation plan calls for receiving state project approvals and building aid calculations by March 1st of 2025. This will be enough time to include these projects in the city's bond offer in April. We are obviously monitoring the progress of each project, the overall plan on a weekly basis, and I have met with controllers off the staff several times, and they've been very professional, productive meetings. Next slide. I should note that of the 16 get my numbers straight, that one of the 16 projects that met the deadline for New York State Ed submissions was the Buff State Da Vinci project. Plan updates. So I talked about where we are in this multi-step process. Here is what we can update you on right now. Based on those numbers I provided regarding only 16 being submitted, the bond sale. Because not all of the projects met the required deadlines, the bond sale will be lower than the $55.4 million that was approved in the city budget. Most likely it'll be around $42.2 million if all these other requirements are met. State project approval, state aid calculation. In addition, there's a possibility of $3.75 million of those projects to receive authorized by unissued status. What that means is they're in the city budget, they didn't hit the deadlines to meet all the other requirements, like having final design, stamp approval from the state, but they get AUI status, meaning they fulfill 90% of the requirements for bond sale, so they can automatically be included in next year's bond sale if there is one. And most importantly, what it allows us to do, you can, if the super and the board so chooses, fund those projects out of the general fund and have next year's bond offering repay the general fund. So it's a very valuable tool. At least 9.5 million projects will not meet the requirements for a bond issue. They'll be excluded from the bond issue. So I go back. We got on the city's budget for $55.4 million. We had clearly indicated to everybody that there's a process involved after that step, and that certain of our projects probably wouldn't meet those deadlines. So we're probably going to, if everything else goes well, borrow $42 million. Next update, project cost. As we move through this process and prepare to get the project shovel ready, which is a big concern of the controller, the city, about borrowing money and not having your projects ready. Ours will be. But we've updated our maximum cost estimates for each project. You have an initial projection a year ago when you're getting all your documents ready, but we hired A&E firms who've actually completed all the design work. That part of the process is often conducted after there's been communication and announcement of these projects. We've gotten that part done, and that's resulted in cost increases for the projects. We now are more certain of what the final cost would be. The total estimated cost of those bondable projects, those 16 projects that I mentioned, has increased by about $22.3 million. The total estimated cost for all 27 of the projects has increased by about $28.8 million. I'm going to touch on the next point, and then I'm going to go back and wrap all this up. Project financing. Because of the cost increases noted above, it will require additional district resources to complete them. A revised potential funding plan will be submitted during February of 2025. That will depend upon the second quarter financial report and the projection for the remainder of this year and a host of other financial factors. But now we got to reconsider how we fund these projects because of the cost increases. It's not a crisis. It's not a shock. It's a factual update that we now have to pivot and deal with. Regarding the Buff State Da Vinci lease, the legal team is working on all outstanding issues with the goal of a March 2025 completion. We need that lease completed in order to bond the project. So I told you the status of the projects. I'm giving you updates on critical factors, regarding cost, project financing. Before we end this, I want to make a personal editorial comment, which I normally don't, but these projects have caused so much emotion and comments back and forth. When I bring it down to its core, I gotta admit, I'm really excited about these projects and to be a part of them. I should even tell you the genesis. It was probably about a year ago. I was talking to Brad Miguel, the electrical engineer, project manager working down in plant. He was telling me that he's been talking about implementing lighting projects district-wide for 10 years. 10 years, and nothing could get off the ground. And the board got involved and wanted these capital project committee. That gave us the impetus to get this done. And then it was only when purchasing and finance and plant started talking to each other, learning from each other, and dedicating ourselves to open, fact-based, and consistent communication, and a clear objective of expediting the process to get things done. And I think tonight's update is an example of that. I mean, these are great projects if we could get them done. The next step, while we're going through the whole bonding financing thing, purchasing team, Jennifer Latempio, one of the critical components of getting these things done. They'll be involved with the plant team and myself to make sure we get the products and the vendors that can get these jobs done, highest quality, and the shortest time frames. We can shave months by following all the purchasing rules, but months of prior delays and things just getting lost because of lack of communication and mutual support. So I know we're working through financing. We're already looking at the next steps to get these things done. I think it's exciting. That's the end of my presentation, Mrs. Woods.
Thank you. Did I hear you say that you did submit to the city controller the necessary items that she requested on both the Da Vinci project and our school safety projects? So she has the materials.
That's right.
Okay.
Yes. There's 16 projects in total, Da Vinci plus 15 others.
Okay. You did send me the list of the projects that were included, and I did forward it to the other board members because the question had been about equity and making sure those projects cross multiple school districts. And I wanted all of you to see that they were equitable because that's always a concern. We want to make sure that we are maintaining our buildings, and we want to make sure that all of our schools are getting a fair opportunity. I want the board members, new board members, to know that our capital budget process has been improved significantly over the last few years. We formed a capital project committee, involved our principals in saying what problems they were having in our schools, gave the board members opportunities to see and point out areas like the roof falling down in Hutch Tech, and to bring projects to the attention of the Capital Budget Committee. So we identify where the problems are now, and it makes it look like we have a lot more capital projects, but we need to know in advance and plan so we can phase in projects that are important to the safety of our schools. So I want to just point out and thank you, Mr. Barnes, for and Mr. Hill, David Hill, and the superintendent and President Kottman for your efforts on that committee to focus on this area. I appreciate your transparency with the challenges that we have, Mr. Barnes, pointing these things out. And if anyone has any questions on the capital project, note you do have these projects, the list of these projects. I did send it to the board members. And if you have any other questions, please raise them now. No takers, no questions. Ms. Kottman? Okay, well, this is a ongoing project. Capital projects are continual, and I do thank the City of Buffalo, the mayor, and the Common Council for putting our project list out there. As Mr. Barnes has pointed out very clearly, we're not going to be doing all of those projects. They did not make all the deadlines, but at least they're in the approved list because we must maintain our buildings. They're the City of Buffalo's buildings, but we must maintain them for the safety of our children. Madam Superintendent, did you want to have any comments on the capital budget?
No, I just want to, reiterate that there's a lot of work happening at the same time. It's good work. I want to thank you also for working along with us step by step with this process. Chief Barnes and his staff, I mean, they do incredible work. And the deadline that was set by the comptroller, it was a very rigorous deadline. And every day I was asking our chief, are we going to meet that deadline? And he said, absolutely. They were here in the evening, they were here on the weekends, and they made sure that we met the deadline that was set. So we are positioned to move everything forward.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent. CFO Barnes, I believe you have another update for us on the commissary.
Yeah, I got one last comment on that capital budget. As we continue to update, in my plan updates page, we'll have to submit another board rec, updating a prior board rec for the capital projects and the increase in costs. So you could just expect to see that, but it's all based on this presentation and the list I gave you. If you have any other questions, Mrs. Woods, please call me.
I will.
Yeah, I do. The last part is commissary update. This should be a real quick one. We can now focus on bringing this across the goal line. We know we have to lease. We can't own. We know we have to utilize the C funds for financing. So while it was worth the effort to explore alternatives, we can now focus that those questions are answered, and we really need to just focus on signing a lease with McGuire. Edmure, next slide. Again, I presented it December 4th, the commissary plan overview, which included the project overview, potential financing plans, the impact on the district's general fund. Tonight, I'm just presenting some updates. Keep in mind that all designs and construction documents have been submitted to the state. The state requires the submission of a lease prior to giving final and full project approval. It's very close, but we need that lease finished. We're currently in lease negotiations with McGuire on a 15-year lease for the new commissary. There's been no change in the estimated cost of this project. It's a $43 million project. The initial funding for this project will come from utilizing the excess C fund reserves. There's no other viable alternatives that exist at the moment. This is like a disclaimer I put in there. Bidding and updated construction costs, they'll be finalized after the lease is signed. But we may engage with a construction management company to update the construction cost estimates, because we will never mislead the board on what the actual costs of the project are. When we find out updates, we will report them right to you. That would only become necessary if we can't sign a lease. For the time being, we're operating under a guaranteed maximum cost of $30,890,000. Next slide, Edna. I presented this in December, but it's really important. Again, there's a lot of opinions and other things surrounding this project. From a financial projection standpoint, we've ripped apart and done cash flows every way to Sunday. Based upon the current lease negotiations, we are projecting that this project may require $10 to $15 million in general fund cash over 15 years. This has been consistent with previous models, calculations, and presentations. What this basically says, you have a beginning food service fund balance of, let's say, $39 million. You put the lease into the current food service operations, which are a break-even operation. They're going to start losing about $3 million a year, $2.5 to $3 million. So you can run that out for like 6-7 years before it starts whittling down the food service excess fund balance. At that time, the general fund would jump in and cover about $2.5 million per year for the last 5 years of the lease. Now, what is supposed to happen at the end of 15 years is we get a greatly discounted, if almost negligible, lease going forward in year 16. So, Andrew, next slide, please. So, the updated cash flow projections using the seed-funded alternative show this is, in my opinion, an economically viable project. But to be honest, not to be honest, to be knowledgeable and factual, it will utilize 10 to 15 million in general funds over the next 15 years in those outer years. The biggest financial risk to this project are extended delays. I cannot stress this enough. It seems like the board wants it, the super wants it. It's got to get done in a short time frame, or those construction costs and other delays and they're going to escalate and far outweigh. If we save $1 million in lease negotiations, but it takes us 6 months, that's the risk. The status of our lease negotiations, we met earlier today, the legal team, David Hills, Mel, myself, to develop a strategy to resolve, Will was there, to develop a strategy to resolve all open issues before the February or March, most likely March board meeting. We got a list of things that we need to protect us on environmental issues and some other things. We need to work out an item that I mentioned about the lease dropping substantially in year 16 and some other things. But we have the list. We just need to get in the room and hammer it out. Both sides know this has got to get closed. Else it's not going to happen from your CFO standpoint. Thank you. That's it.
Well, we know this commissary project is of great concern and interest to the community, the parents, and the students. Nobody wants to come and eat food that isn't appealing and warm, and this is important to our students. So I'm glad we have progress going on that. Does anybody have any questions on the commissary project?
I do. I'm wondering how our committee, are they going to help move it along? Our committee?
Construction.
Yes. Okay.
She's referring to the Construction Advisory Committee.
Right now, I'm not super well informed. I'm aware of it. I couldn't give you an answer right
Indirectly,
now.
yes, there will be some assistance, right? Because they're going to be working with McGuire. They're not going to be the ones that are necessarily pushing the lease forward, but that committee is going to be there to meet as we continue to move the process forward to ensure that it's meeting benchmarks.
Okay.
Right, I'd rather send the money and get
Yes. And will we have two leases at the same time? Like we have the current
Oh, yes,
commissary?
yes.
And are we
There's
extending
an
that
overlap.
lease?
That's
Okay.
a great question. The state actually, when I submit potential funding plans, they always chastise me and say, you're going to have 2 leases for 6 months. Yes, that's factored into our cash flows though.
Okay, thank you.
Each board member has been asked to appoint a person, commissary review committee, because the community does want input, and that's your option. There was an email sent out. Madam Superintendent, do you have anything else you'd like to say about this wonderful commissary project, or work on the budget, or as we continue our capital project, ongoing work on our capital project?
No, I don't. It's been a night of great presentations for the commissary. I say, let's just get it done. Let's get it done. It's been a long time coming. Let's get it done.
Thank you, CFO Barnes, for your transparency so that we recognize the challenges ahead. No surprises. Thank you, Madam Superintendent and board members.
I second that, Chairwoman Woods.
And board members, this concludes the Finance and Operations Committee. Be blessed. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone. Be safe. Stay warm. Stay warm.
Yep.